this one is called the Pupphavagga of Heartwood and flowers. The Buddha uses the metaphor of flowers to illustrate certain qualities of mind. Let me just read it. And it follows the first three classes on ever more increasing focus on what refined mindfulness actually looks like and how to develop it. The Buddha's words: who will overcome this realm of death with all its gods? Again, one of the, just such a powerful first line. The Buddha described living a human life rooted in ignorance as like a living death. And it makes sense, because when we're rooted in ignorance, we're not actually experiencing the reality of this present moment. So it is the same as experiencing a living death. Who will perfect the well-taught Eightfold Path of wisdom as an expert garland maker perfects their floral design? So an expert garland maker won't just grab a whole big pile of flowers and weeds and try to make some money off of that. They'll very carefully use their skill and their mindfulness of what they're doing to make a very beautiful arrangement. Well, we're doing the same thing. We're picking the flowers that are going to populate our mind. And that's what this sutta is about. And so it's about picking flowers that grow in the heartwood of the Dhamma, rather than are prevalent across the planet. What's prevalent across the planet is easy pickings for an ego, isn't it? It takes restraint, as we talked about last week, and constantly. It takes restraint to know how to populate your mind with the right flowers, using the metaphor. The well-focused Dhamma practitioner will overcome this realm of death with all its gods. Again, another reference to the foolishness of believing in any speculative, non-physical existence. The realm of death with all its gods. The well-focused Dhamma practitioner will perfect the well-taught Eightfold Path as an expert garland maker perfects their floral designs. Realizing that form is like foam on the water, a mirage, they deflect Mara's flower-tipped arrows of sensuality and go beyond the grasp of death. A flood sweeps away a village as ignorance sweeps away a person distracted by only picking flowers of pleasure. So again, we develop a conditioned mind that becomes conditioned, that becomes conditioned at grasping after only what that mind rooted in ignorance feels will satisfy them, give them pleasure. And that mind will always be constantly grasping after anything that it conjectures might take away from that pleasure. Of course, both of those views are rooted in ignorance. And so there's a constant tension. Another word for that constant tension is stress, that we're just recognizing in the past 30 years how debilitating that type of inner tension is on a human life, on a human mind and a human body. The Buddha recognized this 2,600 years ago as the most debilitating effect of ignorance. His whole Dhamma is to address and understand that tension within us of wrong views reverberating against that conditioned thinking. Continuing with a metaphor, Mara directs the person whose mind is distracted towards insatiable craving for flowers of pleasure. Mara is always a metaphor for a troubled mind rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. A sage seeking alms is like a bee gathering honey. Both sustain themselves with moderation, always harmless. Both sustain themselves with moderation. Another reference to wise restraint. Life is not a banquet that we should try to take as much off the table as we can. Life is like a banquet that we should leave the table just a little bit hungry. We shouldn't always be filling our pockets, or filling our mouths, or filling our minds with nonsense. We develop right view and know what to hold in mind, what flowers we use to populate our mind. Always mindful of one's own acts and unconcerned with others. The words of those lacking heartwood are like a beautiful flower with no fragrance. Isn't that a wonderful line? Words lacking heartwood, like a beautiful flower with no fragrance. The words of those established in heartwood are skillful, like a beautiful and fragrant flower. Established in heartwood, though mortal, One does many good deeds, just as many fine garlands can be made from a heap of flowers. Though mortal, the Buddha is talking against the common belief of his time that only goodness and good things can come from supernatural sources. That if we gain anything of any benefit, it's a gift, not something that we are directly responsible for. And that relates to something we were talking about before, but it also relates to the fabricated view of karma, meaning that in order for me to develop good karma, I got to do good things. And in that channel of goodness, that goodness will then be reflected back on me by some outside agency, usually called a god or a goddess, or the one mind universal system. The Buddha recognized the cruelty of all of that because it's just rooted in speculation. It's like a wilted flower. There's nothing there. The sweet smell of flowers is lost to the wind. The fragrance of true virtue pervades all directions. Of all fragrance, the fragrance of virtue is sweetest. The fragrance of sandalwood and jasmine is faint. The fragrance of virtue touches all. Mara can never distract one from the Eightfold Path when they abide in mindfulness and right view. And that's a reflection of also the sixth factor of right effort. When we're holding in mind the intention to maintain, the intention to establish and maintain right view, we are practicing the Heartwood of the Dhamma. Of course, that is the framework of the Eightfold Path. It's providing all 8 factors of the Eightfold Path to recognize and abandon when we are rooted in wrong view, a view that is arising from ignorance of Four Noble Truths. And as equally important to recognize when what I'm seeing of myself in relation to the world is rooted in reality of Four Noble Truths. And it is just that. We're either holding on to a wilted flower or a flower in bloom as a reference to our mind. Our mind is either wilted and continually wilted by ignorance of Four Noble Truths, or it's blooming the truth of reality in this present moment, which is the only time that we can practice the Dhamma. The only time we can practice restraint is through a well-concentrated mind, understanding what is framing its view. This is stress. This is the origination of stress. This is the cessation of stress. This is the path leading to the cessation of stress, the Heartwood of the Dhamma. The Buddha continues. Tim, was there? I'm sorry. A lotus, fragrant and pleasing, grows in a heap of roadside rubbish. Even so, the disciple shines resplendent in the wisdom on the rubbish heap of mortals buried in ignorance. Read it again. Let me read those 2 lines again. And watch that smug little ha-ha. A lotus, fragrant and pleasing, grows in a heap of roadside rubbish. In other words, in the midst of all the difficulty and chaos in the world, the Dhamma is present. It's present with all the, to use a much more appropriate term today, rooted in all the ugliness of the world is the pure, beautiful flower of the Dhamma, always present. Even so, the disciple shines resplendent in their wisdom on the rubbish heap of mortals buried in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. That's the end. I thought that was good. Thank you. That's a pretty powerful and fitting way to end that chapter. The rubbish heap of ignorance. There's nothing, again, this is in the progression of these first 4 chapters. It gave us a broad view of understanding that the quality of mind determines this moment's existence, my experience of this moment. And now 4 chapters later, it's refining us to saying what we're holding in mind. The Eightfold Path will determine that. Will determine the quality of our life experience. And so our life can be like a living death, meaning clinging to and maintaining ignorance, or abandoning that and living the liberation of a well-focused, well-concentrated mind. Let's go online. We'll start with Josh. How are you this morning, Josh?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. Good morning, everybody. You know, I thank you for the Sutta, John, and as always, very thought-provoking, and I'm always trying to reflect, how do I fit into this world of stress and my relation to it, and how much do I contribute to the stress, and how much does the world contribute to my stress, I do know that if I try and pay attention to the Dhamma and practice some jhana during the day, it does work. It really works. It does decrease my suffering to a certain amount, but I'm always kind of it's kind of like The Sopranos. You know, I want to get away from all that stress, but it keeps drawing me back. And but I really like the feeling of hope I get when I hear the sutta, that I do have a possibility of reducing some suffering in my life, and hopefully others as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. So well said. I know that as I've developed the Dhamma, I do not contribute to my own stress, and I believe I'm not contributing to the world's stress anymore. And up until I started changing the quality of my mind, I contributed greatly to the stress of the world, mostly inadvertently, but I simply didn't know any better. And that's the understanding that's developed through the Dhamma. Thank you, Josh. Matteo, how are you this morning?
Hi, everybody. All good. All good. I'm fine. Well.
You just completed the Truth of Happiness course. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And this is my first time that I join the Sangha online, and because I live in a different country, so it's a different time zone. And
where are you, Matteo?
I'm Italian, but I'm based in Scotland.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoy to hear the sutra, and the metaphor with the flower really helps a lot to visualize exactly our level of sufferance. Yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad you joined us this morning. Thanks.
Thank you.
Tom, how are you?
Very good, thank you, John.
Good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you, and I'm looking forward to hearing from everyone else shortly. Yeah, I enjoyed the teachings as ever. It's a great, it's a very important sort of part of my day, just to slow down a little bit and to reflect. I don't have anything to sort of add, I don't think right now, or any questions for a change. So I'll just take a noble silence this week. Thank you.
I'm glad you joined us, Tom. David, how are you this morning?
Line that was essentially saying, look out to others, worry about yourself.
Yep.
And think of the world as a flame. And people want to join with how to figure out how to fix the world as a flame.
Yep.
Looking out. Really, what's a flame is your mind and your ignorance.
Yeah.
And it's such a big body of work to be done with yourself that it's a distraction to look out at what John Cassell's doing wrong.
Yeah.
And even with right effort, it's daunting. But it's the work that needs to be done. And the world is a flame, is always a flame. And so what you have control over is the work that you're doing for yourself. And the byproduct will be, as you said, you're not contributing to that outward flame. So, thank you.
Thank you for that. Just always wise words, David, and that it's surprising that we haven't learned in millions of years of human history how important a personal example is to the rest of us. You know, it seems like most of the world is geared towards other people changing, and it never works, does it? We've been trying to improve the human experience by changing other things rather than changing ourselves on an individual level. It just doesn't work. Good morning, Jen.
Good morning. Yeah, I just was thinking about how managing out here is like useless and stressful. I was thinking about the fear of control and the idea that I only have control over myself, and that's just what I was thinking about when you guys were talking. But I don't think I have anything else to add. This has been great. I agree with Matteo that the metaphor in this one is really powerful and very, very helpful to kind of boil down complex concepts within the Dhamma to sort of these nuggets that you can hold in mind.
Yeah. Thank you, Jen. It's powerful teaching. And Jen will be teaching next Saturday's class right here.
Yeah.
Hello, Ram.
Hello, John. I'm starting to really grow into this Dhammapada here. I have to keep a hand down on my scholarly approach to it. It doesn't always help in teaching. But and then I see this, the metaphors that he's using here are just so great. You know, he's talking about the realm of death and all its gods, and then he brings in the garland-maker, and the garland-maker in India is a little guy walking down the street with little strings of marigolds that people use to do their morning puja for their home altar, or if you're meeting your guru, you give him a garland of marigolds. Yeah. And it's that daily detail that he puts into it. It's a complete combination of all of that.
Yeah.
You just you're going through your life, you're thinking you're doing something important, and it's rubbish.
And think of what the courage it took to say that. Really one man in the face of that whole culture.
I mean, it's amazing that he was only attacked like twice by his own cousin. He should have been run out of every town with pitchforks because he just tore it all down. Everything that people thought was important in life, he just ripped it apart. Yeah. But again, the importance is like how you deal with that. Where do you find your own? Where are you in the garland-maker?
Yeah.
Are you garland-maker? Are you dressing up your old beliefs? Because that's where the real work is.
Yep.
It's one of the last lines here of the sage is like a bee going from flower to flower, not harming anything, just taking a little bit of honey, and that's all you need.
Yeah.
That I can relate to. Yes, I do like to live life this way. I've always been taught to dream big and be ambitious and all that stuff. It never worked. this point I can live my life and I do what I do good, do well, and I get paid for it.
Yeah.
And it feels really well balanced.
Yeah.
And having this here is that these are just this. It's like a little picture show that goes up. I can see why this was all gathered, for the bhikkhus going about their daily stuff to have in their pocket, they say, they have a pocket, that they had those sayings to constantly refer back to the way around.
It's such great analysis, Ron. You from someone who had a natural aversion to this, I mean, you really understand the breadth of the Dhammapada. It is very simple, but like the Dhamma, it's so broad in its application. Yeah. And that's just what it was. If the novice bhikkhus and bhikkhunis did carry this around in the back pocket of their mind because of repetitiveness. They heard this over and over again from their particular teacher. And so as they're walking around the countryside, they simply call it back up. This is a situation that relates that way and maintain the Dhamma. Thank you. All right, good morning.
Good morning. Good to be here. Thanks for the teaching. It's good to hear everybody's on it. With a cloudy mind and just hear the teaching and be able to gather what I need. Only gather what I need.
Yeah.
There's so much that doesn't have to be in there.
Yeah. Thank you, Brett. I'm glad you're here this morning. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, everybody. Everybody online, good morning. This was really one of those, for me, one of those difficult suttas, or it's not sutta, study to really understand. You prefaced it from the last teaching on the leading into the realm of death, of course, in regard to three marks. And when I first read this, from my conditioned mind, maybe from my context of how my mind works, got a lot of different things out of it. And listening to everybody in the class and listening to you speak, I kind of have a different understanding. The realm of death, and you stated this in your intro, is impermanence and the three marks of existence. And there, I think that is the realm of death, because
It's not understanding those.
it's right. Well, and also, life moves in a circular rhythm, repeating itself. Right? That's what life does. Birth, death, generations upon generations, and so long as humans exhibit ignorance of the Four Noble Truths, there's going to be that cycle. Birth again, past and the present and the future, and so Buddha's warning of the mortals and their realms of gods, like somehow it's going to end, is palpable. I mean, it's not going to end. It's going to continue. It's this merry-go-round that humans are on until humans can wake up. So what Ram just said too just kind of made me realize as well that the emphasis on the wise restraint. The sutta talks about virtue, and then Ram mentioned about the deed, from place to place, not doing any harm. And that wise restraint does support the virtuous factors of the Eightfold Path.
Yep.
So there's a lot understanding of this teaching with regards to that. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much for what you just said, Tim. The understanding of the three marks of existence is the fundamental understanding that's developed through the Dhamma, because that a misunderstanding results in ongoing stress and suffering. So the cycle of physical human life seems to be generation after generation of birth and death. That's a truth, but it's not a noble truth. The truth of it is just that's what occurs as a consequence of having a human life, but there's nothing personal about that process. What's personal about the process of beginning in birth and ending in death is the quality of my mind in that continuum at any point. So that's what we're developing an understanding of. It's not Tim wasn't inferring this, but the inference of any type of speculative existence is there's some way that I can establish myself in eternity, whether it's as an eternal soul or as someone granted a non-physical life through grace, through my own, because I was such a wonderful human being that now I'm an extraordinary human being, but I was so wonderful, I get to have this gift of eternal life. That's all speculation. It all distracts us from what we're doing right now. And a good example of that is I might be a good person with a hope that I'll get a reward for it. I just lost my mind and I lost my life. Or I'm going to be a good person because it's a natural reflection of my understanding. I just started living my life. Do you see the difference? That's the key to the Dhamma. So the outward appearance of a human being living their life is of no consequence at all. It's the quality of the mind. Going back to the first lesson here, mind governs all. Mind governs all, much more important than my outward actions. So, thank you, Tim. Good morning, Becky.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, John. I really have enjoyed listening to what everybody said about this video. And every time I come, I just feel so happy that the Jhana is something that I have been introduced to. Very stressful week. And it's very difficult not to get, for me anyway, not to get sucked into the flames that are in the world right now. And because I've been practicing as long as I have, I can recognize that. And even when I recognize it, it's very difficult still to come back to myself, to try to see what I'm doing to myself. But now, eventually, through practicing Jhana, through reading about the Jhana, through thinking about not taking things personally, this is not me, this is not mine, all the things that we practice at the point of contact, I'm able to bring myself back to a peaceful place, which is so incredible when I'm finally able to get there again. So thank you.
Well said, Becky. While you were talking, in the back of my head, the Hiyasitu was playing. This is not me. This is not mine. And that simple though profound understanding changes the experience of what's occurring. Just whether it's globally, nationally, or personally. This is not me. This is not mine. This is not what I am. And all the tension falls away because of that recognition. The essence of the Dhamma. Thank you. What's that?
It's just a matter of doing it.
Yeah, but, well, not
You know
but,
that
and you are doing it.
distraction is strong.
Yeah, it is.
Well,
Yeah. It's the familiarity of conditioned thinking that makes it so strong. It's where we're used to go to. We are not in the past. We are used. It's familiar to us to go that way, to have our minds slip into that type of reaction and that type of distraction. And so the concentration we develop in jhana meditation allows us to recognize that process, that we've lost our mind again, and come back into what's occurring, the essence of restraint. You described it beautifully, Becky. Thank you. Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Very well. Once I get all this, but I want to say straight. Remind me stuff.
Take your time. We got all day.
Before I came to you in these classes, and I thought about Buddhism, it was about lotuses and statues, the symbol of Buddha sitting in a lotus.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, and it always meant to me, and I think to many people, that this is where it's at. You have to worship these things.
Yeah.
And they become the direction for where you're headed. It's about the lotus blossom. You have to think about Buddha. And when I visited Asia, I watched people bring garlands and cast statues of the Buddha. And I thought, okay, that's what they do before I do anything. But this sutta, this teaching, you can see how they did it because Buddha talks about the lotus as such an important symbol. And a metaphor just about the Dhamma.
Yep.
People get distracted by the lotus blossom and their focus just on that.
Yeah.
And then just taking off from what Becky was just saying, what I've been thinking about, I mean, the lotus blossom can blossom out of rubbish on the side of the road. But also that rubbish is really inside us, and I think he's saying that. We have the three marks of existence, and we have anger, and we have lust, and we have deluded thinking, and they will continue to come up. But we also have that lotus blossom inside us, that eventually will flower. And someday, maybe
That was beautiful. Yeah, I agree. Such a yeah. It comes from your own right effort. Thank you, Kevin. It was beautiful. As always, all of your shares were beautiful and right on target. It's remarkable to me how far you all developed the Dhamma. I know you're blessed to have the world's greatest teacher, but you've done. You congratulate yourself because you've done the work, and this is all of you. I just said Matteo just finished a 10-week Truth to Happiness course, something that we've all done. We're all developing the Dhamma as intended, and we're reaping the benefits of that understanding. Matteo, I realized your first time joining us, the goggles that I'm wearing just help me see, in case you were wondering what's he doing with those things on. It just helps my vision a little bit. So we're going to continue next Saturday with Jen teaching the 5th chapter. Next Tuesday, we're just going to have a different sutta. We won't be doing this structured study, just so that the schedule lined up for Jen. I just think that the 5th chapter is perfect. Any chapter, Jen would nail it. But I'm looking forward to that. And then in a couple more weeks, Ram will be teaching a class, then Kevin, and then Matt towards the end of this. So you'll get to hear our teachers again. I know that you all heard them on our online retreat. What a wonderful job they did. Looking forward to it. We'll finish with Metta, as we always do. So find your relaxed meditation posture. Gently close your eyes. Gently close your mouths. And these are the Buddha's words on Metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied. unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being free from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class this morning. Peace. See you all.
Thank you, John. See everyone.
Bye-bye.